I never thought I'd have to teach my 12-year-old son of the darker side of human nature, especially not because of someone who was supposed to be family. But watching Tommy wake up at 5 a.m. every morning for his paper route, count his money each night, and search online for the perfect vintage watch for his dad, only to have it all destroyed by his stepmom's greed, broke something in me I didn't know could break. It started last January when Tommy came to me with a determined look in his eyes. "Mom, I want to get a paper route," he said over his breakfast cereal. "Dad's birthday is in December, and I want to get him something really special this year." My heart squeezed. Since Mark and I divorced 3 years ago, Tommy had struggled to maintain his relationship with his father. It didn't help that Victoria, Mark's new wife of 8 months, seemed determined to micromanage every aspect of their interactions. "Are you sure, honey?" I asked. "That's a big commitment." "I'm sure, Mom. Dad always wears those fancy watches when he goes to work meetings. I want to get him one like that, but old and special, you know? Like the ones he shows me in his magazines." So we signed him up for the paper route. Every morning, rain or shine, Tommy would drag himself out of bed, put on his reflective vest, and head out to deliver papers. He never complained, not even during the brutal summer heat or the early autumn storms. "Look, Mom," he'd exclaim every Friday, proudly counting his earnings. "I'm getting closer." The money went into a special box he decorated with watch pictures from his dad's old magazines. Victoria called me in March, her voice dripping with fake concern. "Sarah, don't you think Tommy's too young for a paper route? It seems like such a burden." I could hear the real message beneath her words, that I was a bad mother for letting him work. "He wanted to do this himself," I replied firmly. "He's learning responsibility and the value of hard work." She laughed that tinkling laugh I'd grown to hate. "Oh, sweetie, there are better ways to teach those lessons. Mark and I could just give him an allowance." But Tommy didn't want their money. He wanted to earn this himself. By November, he had saved $300. We spent hours online together, searching through vintage watch sites until he found it. A 1960s Timex with a leather band similar to the expensive ones Mark collected but with its own historical charm. "Dad's going to love it," Tommy whispered, staring at the picture. "It's like the ones he shows me, but it has its own story." The watch arrived a week before Mark's birthday. Tommy couldn't stop smiling as he wrapped it carefully in silver paper, tucking a handwritten card underneath the bow. He even saved an extra $20 to buy a display box. Mark's birthday dinner was at their house. Victoria's idea, of course. She'd invited their country club friends, turning what should have been a family celebration into a social event. Tommy clutched his gift as we walked up their manicured driveway. "Maybe wait until the guests leave to give it to him?" I suggested, noting the expensive cars lining the street. But Tommy shook his head. "Dad always says special moments should be shared." Victoria opened the door in a cocktail dress that probably cost more than my monthly salary. "Oh, you're here," she said, her smile not reaching her eyes. "Tommy, honey, your father's in the living room with the Hendersons. Why don't you go say hello?" I watched my son straighten his shoulders and walk toward his father's voice, the silver package held carefully in front of him. Mark was mid-conversation when Tommy approached, but he turned immediately when his son called out, "Dad, happy birthday." The room quieted as Tommy held out his gift. "I've been saving all year," he explained proudly. "I picked it out special." Mark's face softened as he took the package. "All year, buddy. You didn't have to do that." "Open it, Dad, please." As Mark began carefully unwrapping the paper, Victoria appeared beside him, her perfectly manicured hand resting possessively on his shoulder. The moment the vintage watch was revealed, her nose wrinkled. "Oh, honey," she said in that condescending tone that made my blood boil. "Your father doesn't wear, well, cheap things." Tommy's face fell. "It's not cheap," he protested quietly. "It's vintage, like the ones in Dad's magazines." Mark shot Victoria a look I couldn't quite read. "It's very thoughtful, Tommy. Thank you." But the damage was done. Tommy's moment, his proud revelation of nearly a year's work, had been tainted. He retreated to my side as Victoria smoothly steered the conversation back to their club friends. "Can we go home, Mom?" Tommy whispered, and my heart shattered at the tremor in his voice. "Of course, honey. Let me just grab my purse from the kitchen." That's when I saw it. Victoria's designer handbag was open on the counter, and right there, partially sticking out, was a familiar gift receipt along with several crisp $100 bills. My hands shook as I snapped a quick photo with my phone. Something told me I'd need proof of what I was seeing. "Ready, Mom?" Tommy called from the hallway. "Coming, sweetie." I took one last look at the receipt in Victoria's bag, anger burning in my chest. I didn't know yet exactly what she was planning. But I knew one thing for certain. She had severely underestimated a mother's determination to protect her child's heart. As we drove home, Tommy was unusually quiet, staring out the window at the passing streetlights. "He didn't really like it, did he?" he finally asked. "Your dad loves that you thought of him," I assured him, gripping the steering wheel tighter. Sometimes adults just don't show their feelings the right way. But I knew this wasn't over. Victoria's handbag had told me everything I needed to know about what would happen next, and I was already planning how to handle it. The next week was eerily quiet. Tommy went to his dad's house for his regular Wednesday visit but came home subdued. When I asked about the watch, he just shrugged and said Dad hadn't mentioned it. I could see the hurt in his eyes, but he was trying so hard to be brave about it. What Tommy didn't know was that I'd been building my case. The photo of Victoria's handbag with the receipt and cash was just the beginning. I'd also saved all of Tommy's paper route payment records, kept the original watch purchase documentation, and most importantly, had security camera footage from our front porch showing Tommy diligently heading out for his route every morning. My suspicions were confirmed when I checked our joint custody banking app on Friday morning. There was a new deposit from Mark, $300 with a note that read, "Reimbursing Tommy for returned watch." My blood ran cold. They had returned it without even telling him. I was in the middle of documenting this new evidence when my phone buzzed with a text from Victoria. "Sarah, dear. Just wanted to let you know we returned that old watch Tommy got. Mark and I felt it wasn't appropriate. We'll take him shopping for something more suitable this weekend. No need to mention this to him. We don't want to hurt his feelings." I had to read the message 3 times, each time feeling my anger rise. The audacity of this woman to not only return my son's heartfelt gift, but to try to cover it up and control the narrative was astounding. Before I could respond, another text came through. "Oh, and we put the money in your account. Perhaps you could guide him toward more appropriate gifts in the future." That emoji was the final straw. I was about to type a response that would have made a sailor blush when my phone rang. It was Mark. "Sarah," he started, sounding uncomfortable. "About Tommy's gift. You mean the one your wife returned without telling our son?" My voice was ice cold. Victoria thought. "No, Mark. Stop right there. Do you have any idea what Tommy did to buy that watch? Do you know he got up at 5 a.m. every single morning for a year? That he worked through summer heat, rain, and cold? That he researched vintage watches because he wanted to connect with your interests?" There was a long pause on the other end. I didn't know about the paper route." "Of course you didn't, because you've let Victoria control every aspect of your relationship with our son. And now she's taken the one thing he worked so hard to give you." "Sarah, you're overreacting. We can just." "Just what, Mark? Buy his love with your credit card? Teach him that his efforts don't matter as long as something's expensive enough for Victoria's taste?" I heard Victoria's voice in the background, asking who was calling. Mark's voice became muffled, like he was covering the phone. "Look," he said finally, "what's done is done. The watch is returned. We'll take him shopping this weekend and—" "No, you won't," I cut him off. "Because this weekend Tommy and I are going to have a long talk about self-worth and respect. And then we're going to discuss how some adults in his life have failed him miserably. You can't turn our son against us." Victoria's voice suddenly came through clearly. She must have taken the phone from Mark. "I don't mean to turn him against anyone, Victoria. Your actions have done that all on their own. Oh, and by the way, I have proof of everything. The receipt in your bag, the cash you pocketed, your text trying to cover it up. Everything." "Are you threatening me?" Her voice rose an octave. "No, I'm promising you something. This ends now. The games, the manipulation, the undermining of my son's efforts. All of it, because if it doesn't, I'll make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of person you are." I heard Mark in the background asking what was going on, and Victoria's muffled response. "You're making a mistake," Victoria hissed into the phone. "No, you made the mistake when you thought you could hurt my child and get away with it. I ended the call and sat there, shaking with anger and adrenaline. Through the kitchen window, I could see Tommy shooting baskets in the driveway, each throw a little more aggressive than the last. He was working through his own feelings about all this, even if he didn't know the full story yet. My phone buzzed again. Multiple messages from both Mark and Victoria. I ignored them all. Instead, I opened my laptop and started composing an email to my lawyer. If they wanted to play hardball, I was more than ready. But first, I needed to have an honest conversation with my son. He deserved to know that his efforts weren't unnoticed or unappreciated. And more importantly, he needed to understand that some gifts, like his dedication, thoughtfulness, and hard work, were worth more than any watch could ever be. I grabbed 2 sodas from the fridge and headed outside. It was time for Tommy to learn another important life lesson. Sometimes standing up for yourself means standing up to family. "Hey, buddy," I called out. "Can we talk?" Tommy and I sat on the front porch steps, the afternoon sun casting long shadows across our yard. I handed him a soda and watched as he fiddled with the tab, something he always did when he was anxious. "Mom," he said before I could start, "I know they returned the watch." I nearly choked on my drink. "How did you find out?" He gave me a sad smile that looked too old for his 12-year-old face. "I heard Victoria telling Dad it wasn't appropriate for his image when I was supposed to be doing homework in the study. She didn't know I could hear them." My heart ached. "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry." "It's okay, Mom. I kind of expected it. Victoria never likes anything that isn't from her favorite stores." He took a sip of his soda. "But you know what really hurts? Dad just stood there and let her do it." I wrapped my arm around his shoulders, feeling him lean into me like he used to when he was smaller. Sometimes adults make mistakes, especially when they're trying to please other people. Your dad, he's making a big mistake right now. I just wanted to get him something special. Tommy's voice cracked slightly, something that showed I paid attention when he talked about watches, that I cared about what he likes. "And that's what makes you an amazing son." I squeezed his shoulder. "You put thought and effort and love into that gift. Anyone who can't see the value in that doesn't deserve it." Just then, a car pulled into our driveway. Mark's Tesla. Tommy stiffened beside me. "You don't have to talk to them if you don't want to," I whispered. "No," Tommy stood up, straightening his shoulders. "I want to." Mark got out first, looking uncomfortable. Victoria emerged from the passenger side, clutching her designer handbag, the same one that had held the evidence of her deception. "Tommy," Mark started, but his son cut him off. "Did you really think I wouldn't find out?" Tommy's voice was clear and strong. "About returning my gift." Victoria stepped forward, her heels clicking on our driveway. "Sweetie, we just wanted to get you something better." "No," Tommy's voice cracked, but he pressed on. "You wanted to pretend I didn't spend a whole year working for something. You wanted to replace it with your money like you tried to replace everything else." Mark's face paled. "Son, we didn't mean." "I got up every morning at 5 a.m., Tommy continued, tears now flowing freely. "I worked through rain and cold, and when I was sick, I researched vintage watches because Dad always talks about how things with history have more meaning. But none of that mattered, did it?" Victoria's perfectly composed face finally showed a crack of emotion. "We were only thinking of what's best." "Best for who?" I interjected, standing beside my son. "Best for your image, best for your country club friends, because it certainly wasn't best for Tommy." Mark took a step toward us, but Tommy backed away. "I don't want to go shopping with you this weekend," he said firmly. "I don't want another gift. I just want my dad back, the one who used to care about what I thought and felt before he let you make all his decisions." The silence that followed was deafening. Victoria's hand tightened on her bag. Mark looked like someone had punched him in the gut. "Tommy," Mark's voice was barely a whisper. "I'm so sorry." "Me too, Dad," Tommy replied, turning toward the front door. "Mom, can I go inside?" I nodded, watching as my brave, hurt, wonderful son walked away with his head held high. Before following him, I turned to Mark and Victoria. "The money you reimbursed has been donated to the Children's Hospital. I've documented everything about this incident, including your attempts to hide it from Tommy. From now on, any decisions about my son will include his feelings and wishes, not your social standing. Are we clear?" They both nodded, Victoria for once speechless. "And Mark," I added as they turned to leave, "that vintage watch, it wasn't just a gift. It was your son showing you he loved you enough to work hard for something he thought would make you happy. Remember that the next time you let someone else decide what's appropriate for your image. As I watched them drive away, I heard the basketball bouncing in the backyard, Tommy's way of working through his emotions. I grabbed another soba and headed out back. Sometimes the hardest lessons our children learn aren't the ones we plan to teach them, but watching Tommy stand up for himself, seeing him recognize his own worth despite others' attempts to diminish it, that was a lesson worth more than any watch could ever be. And as for Victoria, well, she learned a valuable lesson too. Never underestimate a child's ability to see through adult pretenses or a mother's determination to protect her son's heart.